I'm Greg Mosley from HudsonValleyBoats.com, and welcome to this interview of mayoral candidates. The format will be 10 questions given in the same order to each participant. Both mayoral candidates have been invited to participate. And now I'll interview with Mr. Victor Mendolia, candidate for the position of mayor of the city of Hudson. Tell me, what are your priorities if elected mayor of the city of Hudson?
Well, I wanted to say thank you for this opportunity first. I think that one of the most important things, probably the most important thing that we need to do is to increase our tax base. We won't be able to do anything else if we don't get the tax crisis under control. And the cost to Hudson's taxpayers for property taxes is just way too high. And I think we can do it in smart ways that increases development and brings new tax payers to the table that would help lessen the burden for the entire city.
Okay. And how would you solve the small city challenges?
Well, that certainly goes to the tax base problem. I think one thing that we have to be very aware of is to help lift everybody in the city out of up at the same time. And while I think that it's important that we have new redevelopment plans and work to increase the tax base, I think we also need job training programs and educational programs that will help lift up the poorest among us at the same time. We can't just develop a city for the rich. And I think we are at a very critical point where we are the difference between rich and poor in the city is increasing and separating at such a high rate that we really have to look at ways of lifting up adults as well as have educational opportunities in the schools for our children. I think it's a critical issue for us.
Okay, great. And the issue that always comes up in every election is the waterfront.
Yeah.
So what will your plans be for the waterfront?
Well, one thing that I would be doing right away is changing the perspective on the cement plant that is at the waterfront. And I believe that the city needs to own the dock and it needs to control the entire waterfront. The LWRP, which is the Local Waterfront Redevelopment Program, which the council has passed, calls for the city to eventually own the dock and the whole waterfront. And I say there's no better time than now to start working on that. The city does not have to shoulder the burden alone. I think that we have been told some untruths. I think that I think certainly we would have, if we took it by eminent domain, we would have to pay for it and we'd have to pay a fair price for it. But I don't believe that the city would have to go it alone. I think the economic advantages for the city are also economic advantages for the state and the county, and I think that we could partner with state and county government in order to make it affordable for us to own our waterfront and control our own destiny. I think we must do that. Okay. One last thing is that we really have to work toward increased access to the waterfront, and I think that in the past 2 years we've only limited access to the waterfront by closing off the North Bay, and I think that we need to open up the North Bay and we have to work toward more access, not less.
Okay. How would you address the issue of gentrification and diversity in the city? It seems like it's an ongoing issue, yeah. And how would you address that?
Well, I think the most important thing to address gentrification is that we need more housing. Hudson used to support many more people than live here now. We have right now 6,500 people living in the city of Hudson. We used to have more than 15,000 people living in the city, and the infrastructure in Hudson can handle a lot more people. We have to have affordable places for those people to live. And I would be working with the council immediately as soon as I get elected and be working toward changing the zoning in some areas, particularly in the Columbia Street corridor where we are right now, which has a lot of blighted and undeveloped property, lots of empty lots and and crumbling old warehouse structures and things. I think we have to look at allowing for a little higher density, perhaps an extra story or two, depending on the location. And I would also encourage, and in some places require, underground parking in any new development, because we can't just increase the number of people here and not increase places to park. So that's so if we had more apartments, and it would help stabilize the rents. As far as diversity, which is a very different issue, but in hiring, we would be making sure that all of our communities are aware of the opportunities to work for city government, and I would also be looking to work with the county to increase those opportunities for county government as well, which I think is county government in particular. I think the hiring process is extremely insulated, let's just call it, and I think that's a big problem. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the police department, so I have some thoughts on diversity there as well.
Now you mentioned the government. Some people think that the government is too big, and there's too many elected officials. What's your take on elected officials, the amount of elected officials that we have in the city?
I think we have way too many elected officials. I've advocated for this for a very long time, probably almost the entire time I've been in the city of Hudson. We have way too many elected officials. 18 elected officials for the city of Hudson. 6,500 people, I think, is much too much, and that doesn't even account for the appointed officials. We have commissioners and all, just way too many levels of government. I would immediately work toward appointing a charter revision commission to look at the problems of the structure of our government. I think we can. I think there are opportunities to save money, and I think also that we have weakened our presence on the Board of Supervisors in ways by having 5 supervisors from 5 wards and instead of 1. All of the other supervisors control the weighted vote for their entire town, and then in Hudson we have 5 different supervisors who are not responsible for anything else. The town supervisors all run their towns and then represent their towns to the county government. And in Hudson, each ward supervisor only represents their ward. And I think that that's something that we have to look at. Perhaps we don't need 2 aldermen from each ward either. And I'm also extremely concerned about the weighted vote that we operate under. The 5th ward, under the new weighted vote in January, will have either 3 or 4 times the weighted vote of any other ward, and I think that that's wrong. I think we have to fix that.
Okay. The issue of housing, and how would you address the issue of housing in the city? Some say some of the areas have deplorable housing, some code violations, and the lack of affordable housing.
Well, I've adjusted a little bit. I think we need to we have to increase density so that developers can make money on affordable housing. And I'm not necessarily talking about subsidized affordable housing, because we do have a lot of that in the city. But I think that if we were to allow for slightly smaller apartments and allow more per property lot, that it would help have affordable market rate housing in the city. Clearly, particularly on the north side of town, the 2nd and the 4th ward, there are a lot. There's a lot of substandard housing throughout the city, and I think we really have to work at providing real code enforcement, trying to make sure that people are living in safe and healthy environments. And I think it's just the kind of thing that will take leadership from the mayor, directing the code enforcement office to really look at how do we make people's lives better in the city of Hudson, and it would be a top priority for me.
Okay. Running a city is a major corporation. What would you do about the budget? How would you seek to increase the budget or decrease the budget?
Right. I don't really think that there's a lot of room to increase the budget right now in almost any area. The one area that I think has been cut to the point where it is not effective is the youth department budget. I think not having a director there and even the money that was paying for the director has now been pulled out of that department. I think the youth department needs to be needs amping up. But I think until we start improving the tax base, I think that there's not a whole lot of area where we can increase the budget. However, there are other priorities that I have, particularly for green space and park space, that I think that we could work toward grants. I think certainly the north side of town needs more green trees and green initiatives as it is. There are a number of other ways where I think that we can increase the flow of money without increasing the budget. One way is there are a number of ways for municipalities to float a bond and allow people to borrow against that money and pay it back over small periods of time as an increase in their taxes in order to improve energy efficiency and code violations in their homes. And I think that that's something that we should be able to do and do it quickly.
Okay. On to the police department. Every city, the police department is an issue.
Yeah.
What would you do to improve the police department, if they need improvement at all?
Right. I certainly support the community policing initiatives that have been taking place. I would seek to have more people on the street. I think there's nothing that prevents crime and creates goodwill between a police department than having people walk the beat and meet their neighbors and know their neighbors. However, I believe that the force is not as diverse as it needs to be. We have a large black population in the city. We have a large gay population and Bangladeshi population, and I think that those communities are underrepresented on the force. And I think we do that by recruiting. And when new members of the force are being hired, we go into the communities and we extol the advantages to those citizens to being a member of the force, which is a great job in the city. And I think the city is extremely diverse, and the force has to reflect that diversity.
Our youth in the city, clearly the youth, they're our future. What are your plans to service the youth?
Well, I think that the youth department is struggling under what they have right now, but I would be looking to increase services at the youth department, but I also have proposed for the Boys and Girls Club to become a true community center where we would do job training and educational opportunities there during the day when it isn't being used for youth programming, because I think that we can't completely help the youth of this city if their parents are not successful in life either. And I think it's the one piece that we haven't really addressed in the city. We have an impoverished population here, some who have been in a cycle of poverty, and I think that we have to look at new ways of breaking that cycle. Of course, the city budget is stretched to its limits, but the reality is that many of the services that I'm talking about bringing there, like job training and remedial education and those kinds of things, are being provided by other providers already. It would be more about facilitating a location that people can walk to than it would be about spending new money on it. We have workforce development and Access VR, which deals with people with disabilities, and certainly the programs at the school and the after-school programs and those kinds of things. I think providing the space and encouraging it to be used as many hours of the day as possible would help students and their parents, and that would be my goal.
Okay, and now the big question everybody wants to know, and every interview has to ask. What makes you the better candidate to be the mayor of the city of Hudson?
Well, I have really been thinking about these issues for a very long time. I've been the chair of the Hudson Democrats for the last 5 years, and really tried to understand the issues and be an advocate for people. And I believe that my positions, my agenda, which I've put out, and people can read at my website, which is betterforhudson.com. I have an extensive, detailed agenda of items for Hudson's improvement, which my opponent just simply hasn't provided. I have real details and real positions, and my opponent just simply hasn't put those forward. I believe that you, as a voter, deserve to understand what I would do and how I would do it, and that's what I put out there. So I encourage you to read and see my policies, and I hope that you will go out and vote, whether you vote for me or my opponent. I hope that you'll vote on November 5th. It's very important.
Thank you for watching Hudson Votes. Again, it is our intentions to get you, the voters, to get out and vote. If you don't vote, you have no voice. Thank you for watching HudsonVotes.com. See you next time.